Welcome back to our Sunday School class here at Pittsburgh Free Will Baptist Church. I'm your host, Brad Goodley. We're going to kind of pick up where we left off last week. We really have to understand the time that we live in. And we've got to be like the sons of Issachar, and we got to know what to do, because our country, our world is teetering right now, if you haven't been paying attention. We talked about the end times events. We talked about all these things that are coming upon the face of the earth. I mean, look around. There's more and more. We equated the Galilean wedding to a rapture. We showed you all the steps that they went through in that and how that equates to it. We went through the feast and harvest cycles. Last week we talked about Passover and Pentecost and how they were types and shadows. The first and second era ones are types and shadows of what's going on right now. So the next one is the Feast of Trumpets. So we're going to look at that a little bit this week. We're going to start right here though. Proverbs 25:2 says, "It is the glory of God to conceal a matter. It's the glory of kings to reveal, to search it out, to find out what God's concealed." Why would God conceal it? I mean, look at what Jesus did. He taught in parables. Why? Because his seed, the seed of the woman, would understand it. The seed of the serpent wouldn't. It would confuse them. If you look at what is going on in the world, there's a dividing happening. You've got the seed of the serpent who's involved in chaos. It's destruction. It's all the craziness. That's the seed of the serpent. And then you have order, which is the seed of the woman, that's what God wants, okay? God has an order to things. So it's pretty clear to see who's involved in what. Wherever there's destruction and chaos and mayhem, that's Satan. And wherever there's order, that's God. So we're gonna look at a worldview here. If we just taught this worldview from Galatians 3:28, the whole world would be a whole lot better. I mean, let's just look at this. There's neither Jew nor Greek. There's neither free nor slave. There's neither male nor female. For you are all in one in Christ. Now look at that. We're all one. We're all equal in who? Christ. So let's take the Jew and the Greek. We talked about this for the last couple of weeks. Deuteronomy 32 worldview, that at the Tower of Babel, God separated the Jew from the Gentile. What he's saying there is that's no longer it. I'm bringing them both back together. The Jew's not better than the Gentile. The Gentile's not better than the Jew. They don't have to kneel to each other. They are equal. There's neither free nor slave. You can't look at somebody as they're your property or whatever. That's out of it, okay? Male and female. I'm not over the female's not over me. We're equal in who? Christ. That takes care of all of it. It's like, wash your hands, it's over. But we didn't teach that because we had a worldview that we started accepting that said, this is old, this is archaic, we got to get that out of there. So we kicked God out of everything because this Marxist, communist worldview come in and said, we don't need that anymore. We, a man, can create a utopia. Well, let's look at that. This is what we're trying to do in the world. We're trying to take all the religions and mash them into one and let's all coexist because we're all the same. Well, no, we're not. No, we're not. So let's look at a couple of these worldviews. Let's take Black Lives Matter, okay? Do Black Lives Matter? Yes, every life is important. But here's what Marxists do, okay? They hide behind a monochrome and they use that to bludgeon people with so they can't fight back against what they're really about, okay? Let's take one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, Alicia Garza. She is a self-proclaimed Marxist. That's communism, okay? And one of the things that's in their plank right here that they want to do is we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family. What is the Western prescribed nuclear family? Dad, mom, children. They don't want that. They want that done away with, okay? The requirements by supporting each other in extended families and villages that collectively care for one another. See, this is a Marxist communist idea. You can't have parents. You can't have them telling children what to do because that's the state's job. It's all about the collective, okay? We're all in this together. It sounds good, but underneath it, it's bad, okay? And that's what they want. They want the state to control everything. Well, that's not the way God designed it. See, communism is about one-party rule. You have no individual rights. You own no property, okay? And they make it sound great because there's a classless society. You don't have the rich. We got to get rid of the rich. Which that's a lie, because the people that belong, that are controlling the state, they're the ones that have all the money. Everybody else gets the same. Okay? So they hide behind these monikers like Planned Parenthood. Well, who wouldn't want a Planned Parenthood? But that's not what Planned Parenthood is about. It's about baby murder. It's about killing babies is what it's about. So they hide behind those things, and they use a monogram like Black Lives Matter because they do, and they say, you can't be against us. Well, we get confused because I'm against that ideology of Marxism, that kind of thinking, okay? But that thinking is what's behind a lot of the things that Black Lives Matter do. I am for all people to be equal, okay? Most people are. But they hide behind that moniker and say, well, if you're against us, you're against racism. No, I'm against what some of the things that you believe in, okay? So there's three things you got to do to destroy a nation from within. And let's see if we've done these three. You got to remove the moral authority of the land. Well, up until the 1900s, when the progressives started moving in, the moral authority of our land was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob manifested in the person of Jesus Christ. This was how we governed things, okay? That's the way that was intended to be. Everything worked pretty good, but no, we got to kick God out. So we kicked God out of everything. So we destroyed the moral authority because the moral authority now becomes the state. They tell us what's right and wrong. We'll see how this relates back to the Garden of Eden here in a little bit, okay? Then you got to dismantle the nuclear family. You can't have mom and dad telling the kids what to do. So you got to get rid of the parents. So you make divorce easy. You have a sexual revolution, okay? Look in the Bible. Whenever the enemies of Israel wanted to mess them up, what do? They get them involved in a sexual revolution, okay? Then you get them involved in pornography, gambling, drugs, alcohol, just all kinds of things to pull the family apart. Check, we've done that one. So we've got 1 and 2 we've done. How about abolish nationalism? Well, you make it racist to be a nationalist. Okay? You can't love your country because if we're all going to be part of one global community, you can't love one more than the other one. Are we doing that? Yep. It all started back in the 60s where you burning the flag and all that. You get people used to seeing that, and now what are we doing? We're pulling down statues. We're pulling down. You can't have history. Because if you want to destroy a nation, they can't have anything that ties them to their past. You want them to move into this collective future, okay? Well, we've done all three of those. So look at what our country's doing right now. And it's self-inflicted. Now, we based all this on science. We started it with evolution. We kicked God out and replaced it with evolution. Well, let's look at evolution, okay? The name of the book is The Origin of Species by the Means of Natural Selection. Now, that's where most people stop right there. But let's read the rest of this title. Or the preservation of the favored races in the struggle for life. Well, let that marinate a little bit. Okay? The preservation of the favored races. See, if you understand evolution, it's the survival of the fittest. And there has to be one race that elevates itself to promote the species, and it has to get rid of the other ones. I'm sorry, that's racism. That's what evolution promotes. And we've taught that for the last 50, 60 years in our nation. Well, what do we expect? This is what we've got. So if you're an evolutionist, you're actually a racist, because it says it in the title right there. We adopted that worldview. And then we tried to mix in a little Hinduism. Oh, it's a religion of love. No, it ain't. It's a caste system. So if I grow up and I'm a commoner, I stay in that. There's nothing that I can't work my way out of. I can't do anything. Why do all those people want to come to this country? Because they got a chance to get out of this, all right? They want that in this country. They're trying to kill the middle class right now. So you've got people that have a lot of money and just the working class. Okay, they're just the little worker bees that don't make anything. How about Buddhism? Buddhism sprang out of Hinduism. Buddhism's all about suffering. Yeah, you suffer in this life and you suffer in the next life because they believe in reincarnation. So all the things that you did bad in the life before, you have to suffer for them through this life. So they actually believe that what happens to you in this life was because of what you did in your last life, okay? And you have to finally work yourself to nirvana, okay? Anybody want to do that? How about Islam? Oh, that's great. No, Islam means submission. That's what the root of the word means. It means to submit. You make people submit. That's not right. That's not equal. And God is unknowable. So when you hear these people say Islam is the God of Islam and the God of Judeo-Christian, they're the same. No, they're not. I know my God. I have a personal relationship with my God. Islam, you can't. Okay? So we're trying to take all these worldviews and cram them into one. And what do you get? You get the state of Chaz, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Okay? Well, it's funny. These people always tell us that we can't, putting up barriers around your nation is racist, and being armed and having armed guards are racist. And what did they do? The first thing they did was put up a barrier, and they got armed guards. Okay? It's hypocrisy at its finest right there. That's coming to a city near you if we don't watch it. Well, where did all this start? Let's go back to Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. And in his image, he created them male and female. So let's look at how many races are there on the face of the earth. Now, we're told that race has to do with color, skin color. But if we look at what the Bible tells us, you had one man, God created one man, and he took a woman out of his rib, and they had children. So how many races are there? One. What if we had taught that? What if we had taught the whole world that we're all one? We're all brothers and sisters, because that's how God created. How much better would things be? See, it's right there in the Bible. But we don't want to do that. We want to be distracted by all these other things. Okay? Just to give you an example of what I'm talking about here, using science, PubMed.gov published an article in 2011 that said skin color could be the new fingerprint. And what they were doing is they were studying how the skin reflects light. See, how you see color is that's the only color that is reflected. All the other colors are absorbed. And everybody's skin is different. And it absorbs light at a different rate. So you have a different skin color. And what they're finding out is nobody has the exact same skin color as you. Okay? So a couple years later, there was another book that was written. A guy wrote a book on this, In the Pursuit of Integration. And they found out for sure this is exactly true. There is no one on the face of the earth that has the exact same skin color as you. That's science. But have you heard that? No, because that wouldn't be promoting what they want, which is division between all of us. Okay? So let's read this. Skin color categorization lacks any accurate gradation and corresponding measurement. Thus, it is subjective, imprecise, and arbitrary. You know what that means? It's a guess. So when you tell someone they're yellow or black or white or what, that's just what your vision of it is. Okay? It's arbitrary. It's not scientific. When black and white are used as characterized skin color, they are approximations. Let me give you an example. Which one of these am I? Am I black? Nope. Am I white? Nope. You know why? Because I'm neither one of these, and neither are you. Nobody's in these. So why do we section people off into these? Because it's easier to get us to fight against each other. See, both people on the left and the right have used this for years to get us to fight, and while we're fighting, they're passing laws that give themselves more power and more money and put us in subjection. And we fell for it. Okay? This article goes on to say, no exact assessment of either skin color. Skin color is averaging out toward the middle, getting brownish worldwide. So we're not actually black or white, we're actually different shades of brown. Okay? So here's an example of science right here, and they'll tell you this, okay? If a man and a woman get together and they have 20 kids, they could have anywhere from a pale child to a very dark-skinned child, because that's the way God designed us. He wanted everybody to be different. He wanted us to be unique. There is no one on the face of the earth that has ever existed that's just like you. Now, what if we taught people that? That a God that created us loved us so much, He created us unique. And there's nobody that looks like me or can do what I can do. And He made me unique. Wow, how much better would the world be? It finishes to say, no skin color is a duplicate of another. The Bible told us that a long time ago. Each human being owns his individual specific color. In actuality, skin color may be considered a signature of the individual, like a fingerprint. But we've allowed ourselves to be put in little groups so we can be agitated. It's their fault, and we fight against each other. I mean, we've been conditioned this way. Just close your eyes for a second. I want you to visualize yourself, just whatever pops in your mind, okay, when I say this. Racist. What popped into your mind? White guy with a hat on? Why? Because we've been conditioned that way, okay? There's all types of things that we've been conditioned to think because we've been taught that. That's not actually the truth. Matthew 22:37 through 40 says, Jesus said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. Now let's look at the order that this goes in. Heart, soul, mind. Where does Satan work? He works here first and gets you emotionally involved in what he's doing, and he distracts you so your heart can't draw your soul to God. God, on the other hand, says this, look, you got to love me first. And if you're going to love me first, here's how you have to do it. You have to let me control your heart. I'll draw your heart to me, and it will draw your soul. Then what you put in your mind will be right. Okay? But we don't do that. We've allowed it to go the other way. Because science tells us that. Here's what the Bible says. Psalms 51:10. Create in me a clean heart, O God, renew me a steadfast spirit. See, if my heart is clean, the Spirit will keep me immovable. So all these things that come against me, I won't let my mind get focused off of God. Ezekiel 36:26 says, I will give you a new heart. I will put a new spirit within you. Look at the order. Same thing we just talked about. Okay? The heart and the Spirit will control us. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. Now wait a minute. We're supposed to separate ourselves from the flesh. He's not talking about that. When Jesus came out of the grave, he had a glorified body. What this is talking about, we're going to have the same heart as God. The same heart as Jesus. And where's that heart focused at? It's focused on God. Proverbs 4:23. Keep your heart with all diligence. That word keep is a military term. It was the same thing God told Adam. Keep and tend the garden. Well, what did he do? He allowed a serpent to come in and deceive by what? Attacking the mind. For out of this heart springs the issues of life. Think out all the issues that come up in life. If the heart was right, we would do the right thing. Jeremiah 17:9 says the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? You see, if you allow your mind to get involved in emotion, the heart becomes completely wicked because that's what Satan's after. So we got to get it in the right order. Now, when we get this in the right order and we've got our heart and our soul and our mind focused on God, we love Him, then we can go to the second commandment that Jesus gave us was this. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. God first, get that in order, get myself focused, and then I can go do what? I can love my neighbor the way that I'm supposed to. Well, who's my neighbor? Everybody in the world is your neighbor. Now, if we did this, would there be any racism? I'm not even going to use that term anymore, okay? It's made up. I wouldn't be against my fellow brother or sister. I wouldn't, because I've read the Bible, and the Bible tells me I can't do that. So there were two trees in the garden, right? The tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And let's look what that happened, what actually happened when they ate from that. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? See what Satan did there? He got Eve to think. She hadn't already established in her heart that when that came up, it was no. Science tells us, especially with kids, if they haven't decided that they're not going to drink or smoke or have sex or do whatever, before someone propositions them to do it, 85% of the time they'll go ahead and do it. Now think about that. If you haven't established it in your heart that you're not going to do it before you've been propositioned to do it, you'll go ahead and do it. What did Eve do? She allowed him to get in her mind, and he drew her away. And not just her husband. And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit which is in the midst of the garden, God said, you shall not eat, nor you shall touch it, lest you die. I'm doing a little word study on the word touch there, and see where that goes. You'll be shocked about what that actually means, okay? And if you show up on Wednesday night, I'll teach you. Then the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die. What did he do? Again, he attacked her mind, and he got her to doubt God. That's the whole thing. Then you work on emotion. When you're doubting something, you're insecure and you feel inferior, and then you're swimming to grab a hold of anything. And Satan's right there to say, I'll give you this, okay? For God knows in the day that you eat of it, your eyes will be open. Oh, their eyes were open, right? Okay? And they realized exactly what they had done, and all that guilt and shame came on them. And that's what happens after we do follow our mind instead of our heart being attached to God. And you will be like God, knowing good and evil. See, here's what actually was going on here. What he got Adam and Eve to do was, it's not God who determines who's good, what's good and evil. Now, it's you. When they ate of that tree, they were saying, God, you no longer tell us what is good and evil. We will decide what is good and evil. And when man does what's right in his own eyes, just look it up in the Bible. Look up that little verse right there. When man does what's right in his own eyes, it's awful. Look around in the world. Men and women are doing what's right in their own eyes. And how much chaos is it causing? It all started right here. Because I know what's right. When people say good is evil and evil is good, look out. And that the Bible tells us that, and that's what's going on right now. So it started all the way back in the garden, and it's right here, right now. So what do the feast have to do with this? Well, I'm glad you asked. The Feast of Trumpets is coming up here in September. And we talked about the barley harvest. Well, that barley harvest is getting ready to come together. God is trying to send us out. The harvest is ready. He's trying to get us to bring it in. That's what we're supposed to do. September 19th, 2020 is Feast of Trumpets. Leviticus 23 through 25 says, Then the Lord spoke to Moses, Speak to the children of Israel, and on the 7th month, the first day, you're going to have this feast. Okay? Now this feast is kind of a mystery compared to all the others. All the other feasts, God gives specific things that he wants to do. And with this one, he says, I want you to have a Sabbath rest, which all of them do, okay? I want you to come together, I want you to blow trumpets, and then the next thing I want you to do is have a offering made by fire. So that's all he told them to do in this. But it happens on the first of the month, okay? Now there were 5 offerings, fire, grain, peace, sin, and guilt, okay? And those match all the things that were, the things that were in the temple, okay? And I could teach you all that, but made by fire. This offering is made by fire. It's something that you sacrificially give. He didn't tell you what to bring. He didn't tell you to bring a bull or a ram or a goat or what. It was your sacrifice. So from now until September, what are you going to give to God as a sacrifice? What, are you going to pray and fast for our country, for our nation, for people to come to the knowledge of God? Are we really going to focus in and do what we're supposed to do? Because the other 2 feasts, the Feast of Passover and the Feast of Pentecost, were pretty much like the first ones. So what do we think this one's going to be like? The Jewish holidays will always fall on a full moon of the month, except for this one. Okay? So they fell on the full moon. This is the only one that didn't fall on the full moon. It's called Rosh Hashanah because it's the head of the new year. It occurs at the beginning of the month with the first sliver of the new moon, and it occurs on Tishri, which is in September, October. Okay? So the Jewish calendar is on a 30-day month cycle. So they have 360 days in their calendar. They have to add an extra month every so often to get to equal out. Okay? So they have 30 days. And they had to see the sliver of the new moon started, and it would look like this. Okay? So they would wait until they saw the sliver of the new moon. Now, we can calculate this exactly because we got computers and stuff. They couldn't do that. So there was a 2-day period in there when they didn't know when this was going to start. No one knew the day or the hour when this feast was going to start. Have you heard that verse before? Maybe somewhere? So the new month could not officially start until 2 witnesses who were trained. They would be picked every year. They would pick them every year. It would be different ones every year. They would train them on what to see. They would send them out close to the time. They would go to different places in the city. They would watch. When they saw it, they would come back, report to the high priest. He would take them in the room. They would never be together. The 2 witnesses would never be together, so they couldn't talk. The high priest would grill him, talk, asking questions. When both of their stories equaled, the high priest would come out. He would, I got a cheap shofar here. He would blow the shofar and say, Rosh Hashanah has begun. Okay? The other one's really loud. Okay, and you'll hear that here in a second. Colossians 2:16 through 17. Paul's telling them, don't let anybody judge you in food or drink regarding the festival of the new moon or Sabbath. This new moon or Sabbath, he's talking about the Feast of Trumpets right there. Because all the other ones happened with the full moon. He's talking about the new moon, the first sliver of the moon. Okay? And what he says here in verse 17 is this concealing a matter to us, which are shadows of things to come, but the substance is Christ. And he's trying to tell us, hey, this Feast of Trumpets is really important because it's a shadow of Christ. Now, all the other ones were a shadow of Christ, yes. But he's pointing to this one specifically by saying the new moon or Sabbath. So this is the other thing we got to understand with the Jewish calendar, okay? We have one calendar. They have 2. They had a religious calendar and they had a civil calendar. The religious calendar starts with Passover. That's the first month. That's the month of Nisan. It's March, April. Okay? But the civil calendar, it starts with Tishri, okay? The Feast of Trumpets. And that's in September, October. Now, why are they different? Well, there's a reason. Because it's a type and shadow. Let me give you an example here. The civil calendar was all the way up until Moses established the feast. Okay? When God established the feast, that's when they started the religious calendar. Noah's Ark came down on Mount Ararat on the 17th day of Nisan. So it was in March, April on the 17th day. Okay? Passover would start on the 14th of Nisan. So Jesus was crucified on the 14th day of either March or April. Now, why is that important? Let's look at this. No one knows the day or the hour. The ark comes down on Mount Ararat, and on the 17th day, Noah walked out. Jesus is crucified on the 14th day, and 3 days later, on the 17th, he walked out of his grave. Noah walked out of the ark on the 17th, and Jesus walked out of the grave on the 17th. Well, that's a coincidence. No, that's not. That's a type and shadow. Because what happened? The earth was crazy. It was full of sin. And God had Noah get in the ark, right? And water is likened to the Holy Spirit. And that ark was lifted up, and all that death, all that evil was killed by the water. And when it came back down, Noah exited and brought life. Let's look at Jesus. Sin was in the world. He was killed. Okay? And he overtook all this evil in the world. So when he came out, new life began. So what's going to happen on this Feast of Trumpets. So no one knows the day or the hour, only my Father in heaven. There's two things that's equal to, if you were paying attention. The Galilean wedding, no one knew the day or the hour. The Father was going to send his Son to get his bride, okay, and that has to do with the barley harvest. And the Feast of Trumpets. Now, Jesus fulfilled Passover on the exact day. He fulfilled unleavened bread on the exact day. He fulfilled first fruits on the exact day. And he fulfilled Pentecost on the exact day. And the Feast of Trumpets is known as the feast that no one knows the day or the hour because there's a 2-day period in there. We might need to think about that. Oh. Then the next verse in that, verse 37 says, but as the days of Noah were, so will also the coming of the Son of Man be. So he equated Noah with this feast and what happened with Noah. Okay? We need to put 2 and 2 together. Now, Proverbs 25:2 says, it is the glory of God that conceal a matter and the glory of kings to search it out. We just searched some things out and we made some types and shadows of what's going on. If you listen real close, you might hear a trumpet. And I'll give you an example of that here shortly. 1 Thessalonians 4:16-17 says, for the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trump of God. Now the people would have understood that's pointing toward the Feast of Trumpets. 1 Thessalonians chapter 15, 52 through 55 says, in a moment and a twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. So now he's getting specific. When is this going to happen? When is the rapture going to happen? It's going to happen at the last trumpet, at the Feast of Trumpets. Okay? So, let's listen to what these 4 trumpets would sound like during the Feast of Trumpets.
The 4 sounds of the shofar. Tekiah. Shevarim. Sarua. Tekiah Gadol.
So those are examples of the 4 trumpets that are blown during the Feast of Trumpets. Okay, so you have the Tekiah. That's basically saying, hey, so it started. That's what the high priest would blow, and the feast has started. The Shevarim is, hey, you need to get yourself focused on God. You need to get all your sins, go back through all of what you've done the rest of the year before here, and get your mind right, and get focused on God, get your heart on Him. The teruah, the like that, that's like an alarm sound. Hey, come together, get yourself ready, because if you didn't have your sins confessed before that last trumpet, you were out. God would separate you. Now think about that, what that has to do with the rapture, okay? And that last one is the longest and loudest one. Read when God came down on Mount Sinai. It's the same type of trumpet blast, okay? So that is about the Feast of Trumpets. Now, let's look at something that's going on worldwide that's been going on since about 2007. Okay, Romans 8:22-24 tells us, for the whole world groans and labors with birth pains until now. Okay? See if that sound that you just heard sounds anything like this. This has been heard worldwide. walking out of your house and hearing that for about 10, 15 minutes. Listen with your spiritual ears. If all the things that are going on in the world and all the things that the Bible tells us about this time of the end hasn't got you focused and excited about the coming of the Lord, I don't know, but if you listen real close, you might be able to hear that trumpet. I'll finish with this. Our last administration, our president's name was Barack, and his vice president's name was Joseph. Okay? Barack in Hebrew means blessing. Joseph means suffering servant. So if you put that together, he's going to bless us through suffering. And if you look at the last 15, 20 years, okay, what has God been doing? We've been suffering, but through it, he's bringing us closer to him. Okay? Look at this administration right now, what their names are. Trump, Pence. Put them together. Trumpets. That's if you think that's a coincidence, God does have a sense of humor. We better get ready. There's my email. If you got anything to say. If you don't, I don't get any emails anyhow. I'll bless you. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. See you next week.